Story 9. You're nearly there. Keep going. This one's called Aliens in the Garden. Thick black clouds rolled across the sky as I walked toward the park. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the distance. Forget the park, Kurt, I told myself. Nobody will show up in this weather anyway. More thunder, louder now. That did it. I turned around and started for home. As I hurried around the corner, I spotted Rocky up ahead of me. I stopped, and I wish I could just disappear. Rocky is a dog. A mean, vicious dog with ratty brown fur, sharp yellow fangs, and killer eyes. I held my breath, crossed my fingers that he wouldn't come any closer, and I got lucky. Rocky sniffed in the gutter for a couple of seconds, then trotted away. I let my breath out in a big whoosh. "Yo, creepo!" a voice roared from behind me. I sucked in my breath again. "I should have known," I mumbled. "Wherever Rocky goes, Flip won't be far behind." Slowly, I turned around and faced him. Flip is Rocky's owner. Flip is 14, 2 years older than I am, and he's huge, with the same ratty hair and yellow teeth as his dog. It's hard to decide which one is meaner. "Where do you think you're going, Kurt?" he demanded. "Home," I told him. "A storm is coming in." "Ooh, a storm!" he sneered and pushed me backwards. "Gonna go hide under the bed?" Flip's favourite sport is picking on me. He pushed me again, harder. I almost fell over. "Get a life, Flip," I yelled. "Go sniff gutters with your mutt." Flip's eyes narrowed. He clenched his big fists. "You should have kept your mouth shut," I told myself. "You're in major trouble now." Just as Flip dove for me, a shaft of lightning split the clouds. Thunder boomed, more lightning flashed, and then rain poured out of the sky. "Ah, you're not worth getting soaked for," Flip growled. Instead of pounding me to dust, he shoved me aside and took off. Saved by a summer storm. I'd lucked out after all. Upstairs in my bedroom, I changed into dry clothes. I could hear the wind howling outside. I ran to the window and crouched down in front of it to watch the storm. As I did, I saw something whiz past outside. Another lightning bolt split the sky. It zapped the flying object and lit it up. I stared hard at the object. It looked like a little toy spaceship. I mashed my nose against the window pane to see better. There! It hovered low over the backyard, wobbling back and forth, out of control. I craned my neck to watch. The object spiraled down, 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 and then splat! It nosedived right into the middle of a berry bush. I kept my eyes on that bush until the storm finally blew itself out. It wasn't a long storm, but it was one of the heaviest I've ever seen. When the rain slowed to a drizzle, I ran outside and sloshed my way into the garden. Disaster area. Ripped leaves and broken branches covered the ground. Slimy green vegetable guts dripped down the fence. Mud slithered into my shoes and oozed between my toes. I squished over to the berry bush and stooped down. Blood-red juice splattered onto my fingers as I pried some branches apart. There sat the object, stuck, nose first, into the ground under the bush. Wisps of hissing steam rose up from it. I cautiously reached down and touched it. Warm, but not too hot. The mud made a sucking sound as I tugged it loose. I wiped the object on my shirt and stared at it. Some kind of spaceship, for sure, but made out of metal, cone-shaped, with 3 little wings at one end and a tinted window at the other. I couldn't see inside, but it's definitely not a toy, I decided. It's too solid, and it survived the storm and the crash. An awesome thought suddenly hit me. Could this little spaceship be real? I always figured flying saucers and alien spaceships had to be huge, but I'd never actually seen one. How could I know for sure that I didn't have one in my hands? I tucked the ship under my arm and hurried to the park to show it to my best friend, Jenna. I knew she would show up. Jenna loves going to the park. She practically lives there. As I sat down on a bench, Flip burst out of some bushes and landed in front of me. Guess my luck ran out. "Hey, creepo, what's that?" he asked, grabbing for the spaceship. I tried to push him away, but he yanked me straight off the bench and tossed me into the grass. The ship flew from my hand and landed nearby. Flip stared at it. He stared at it for a solid second, then he shook his ratty head and bellowed out a laugh. "A toy spaceship? Aren't you a little old to be playing with toys?" As I struggled to my knees, Flip reached for the ship. I knew he'd try and smash it, so I made a grab for it. In a flash, Flip had me in a headlock. His arm squeezed tighter around my neck. I tried to pull it away. The muscle felt like stone. His arm didn't budge. I gasped for air. Flip let out another laugh, but his laugh turned into a shriek. To my surprise, his arm dropped from my neck. I sank to the ground. Flip shrieked again. I sucked in air and stared up at him. He held his face with one hand and hopped up and down, screeching in pain. As I gazed at him, a little blue light zipped past my eyes and hit Flip on his bony knee. Sparks flew from his skin. He roared and dropped to the ground. Then he rolled over, leaped up and ran off. Saved again, I thought, but by what? Where did that blue light come from? I sat up and glanced around and gasped. On the ground near the spaceship stood 3 small aliens. Aliens? You're seeing things, Kurt, I told myself. Flip's chokehold cut off your air and messed up your brain. I glanced away, shook my head to clear it, blinked hard and rubbed my eyes. Slowly, I glanced back at the ground. The aliens still stood there, not much taller than the grass. They wore puffy silver suits and round white helmets with shaded visors. Whoa! Not only had a real spaceship crashed into the garden, but it had real aliens in it. Awesome! I stared hard and saw that each alien clutched a tiny gun in its hand. Ray guns. Ray guns that shot a painful blue light. I'm toast now, I thought, jumping to my feet, but instead of zapping me, the aliens shoved the guns into their suits. Then they tilted their heads way back and gazed up at me. I crouched down on my hands and knees. I stuck my face real close to one of the aliens and squinted into its visor. A weird face with bright red hair growing all over it, beady little eyes, a button nose and a smile on its tiny mouth. I heard a faint squeaking sound. I stared harder. The alien's lips flapped. It's talking, I realized. An alien is actually talking to me. I grinned. "Hi, I'm Kurt," I told it. "Listen, thanks for zapping Flip." All 3 aliens grabbed their helmets and cringed. At first, I didn't get it. Then I realized the problem. My voice. I'm at least 100 times as big as these little guys, I told myself. My voice is killing their ears. "Flip is a total bully," I whispered. "I really owe you one. I mean, you saved my life." I peered at the first alien again. It just shook its head and shrugged. It couldn't understand a word I said. "Hey, Kurt, what are you doing?" a voice called out from behind me. My friend Jenna's voice. The alien stood still as she dropped onto the ground beside me. Jenna gazed at the aliens. Then she slowly glanced at me. "Please tell me that you're not playing with dolls, Kurt." "They're not dolls," I whispered. "They're aliens." "Alien what?" Aliens, I told her, "from outer space." She rolled her eyes. "Give me a break." "Keep your voice down," I whispered. "It hurts their ears." "You're kidding, right?" Jenna glanced at the aliens. "Hello down there," she cried. The aliens grabbed their heads and cringed again. Jenna gasped. Her green eyes grew huge. "Kurt," she whispered, "please tell me you've got a remote control somewhere." I pulled the pockets of my shorts inside out. "No remote, Jenna." "This is unreal," she murmured, but I could tell she believed me now. "How did they get here?" I pointed to the ship. The storm knocked it out of the sky, into my garden. Wow. Jenna gazed at the aliens. "I never thought I'd see anything like this. I mean, there's actually life on another planet somewhere." She bent lower and squinted closely at the first alien. "Don't make any sudden moves," I warned. "It's got a mean ray gun. They all do. Flip tried to choke me, and they zapped him." Jenna grinned. "If they zapped Flip, they're definitely good guys." She inspected the aliens again. "I wonder where they're from." "I don't know, but I bet they want to go home," I told her. "After meeting Flip, who wouldn't?" Jenna muttered. "Can the ship still fly?" Before I could answer, the aliens suddenly stiffened. I glanced up. "Uh-oh, Flip's back," I warned, "and he brought Drake along for company." Flip and his cousin Drake were tearing along the path toward the bench. Drake carried a bat with a wild laugh. Flip vaulted the bench and landed near the spaceship. The aliens scattered. Ready for some fun? Flip roared to Drake. Drake snickered. Leave them alone, I shouted. Flip laughed again. Hey, creepo. Didn't your mother ever teach you to share your toys? Two of the aliens scurried off in opposite directions. Drake darted after one of them, whacking his bat on the ground and laughing. Cut it out, Jenna cried. She chased after Drake. I spotted the third alien running for the ship. It tripped over a twig and fell on its face. Flip snatched it up in his fat hand. You're dog meat, he snarled. He pinned the alien's arms to its side and began to squeeze. He'll squash it, I thought. They saved me. Now it was my turn to save them. I made a desperate leap. I crashed against Flip's knees, knocking him to the ground. The alien popped from his hand and tumbled end over end through the air. I stretched out my arms as far as I could and caught it inches from the ground. It struggled to its feet. Kurt's got one, Flip shouted to Drake, scrambling up. Forget the others, get Kurt! Drake and Flip charged at me. Jenna jumped on Flip's back, but he shook her off easily. I slipped the alien into the pocket of my shorts and ran. I dashed along the path, scuttled through some bushes and into a clearing. As I sprinted up a grassy hill, I heard Flip and Drake crashing through the bushes after me. I put on more speed and charged down the other side of the hill, then I doubled back. Gasping for breath, I crawled through the bushes again. At the edge of the path, I peeked out and froze. Flip's dog, Rocky, stood on the path, his killer eyes glaring straight into mine. My heart hammered against my chest. Rocky's lips curled back, his yellow fangs dripped saliva. He lowered his huge, scraggly head and snarled. He pawed the ground, snarled again, and sprang at me. I cried out as a little blue light zapped through the air. It caught Rocky right between the eyes. The dog yelped and dropped to the ground at my feet, looking dazed. The blue light meant only one thing. There was an alien close by. I glanced around and spotted it, caught in a thicket of thorny branches. Thanks again, I whispered, reaching into the bush. The tiny spacesuit ripped as I tugged the alien free. I quickly dropped it into my other pocket. Still dazed, Rocky whined meekly as I stepped past him and bolted down the path. Kurt, Jenna cried when she saw me. Hurry! I've got two of the aliens, I gasped, running up to her. We've got to find the other one. I did, she told me. It's in the ship. Maybe it's trying to get the spaceship working. Let's hope so. I dug the other two aliens out of my pocket and set them in the open hatch of the ship. They waved at me, then hurried inside. The tiny hatch closed. A loud, angry bark made Jenna and me spin around. Rocky had recovered and he was charging toward us. Flip and Drake raced behind him, shouting, "Get the aliens!" I stooped down next to the spaceship. Tiny red lights flickered on, but it didn't move. The barking and the shouting grew louder. The spaceship still didn't move. I had to do something. I grabbed it off the ground, cocked my arm back, and hurled the ship as high as I could into the air. The ship soared upward, higher, higher, and then the nose dipped. Jenna and I both gasped. The tiny spaceship began to spiral down. Rocky chased after it, barking wildly. Flip and Drake both cheered. I groaned and started to cover my eyes, but then I saw a puff of smoke from the back of the ship. Then another. The spacecraft leveled off and began to climb. Yes, I cheered. Flip and Drake stared with their mouths hanging open. More smoke billowed. The red lights twinkled. The ship kept climbing. It rose higher and higher until all we could see was a silver dot in the sky. Unreal, Jenna kept muttering as we hurried out of the park. Real, but totally unreal. Flip and Drake still can't believe it, I said, snickering. They're both back in the park, gaping at the sky. She laughed. Too bad the aliens couldn't have zapped them one last time. Yeah, and it's too bad they couldn't have stayed a little longer. I stared up at the sky too. One thing is for sure, I'll never forget them. I bet they'll never forget us either. Jenna pointed an ice cream truck down the street. And I think we deserve a reward for saving them, don't you? Definitely. I dug into my pockets and pulled out some coins. I also pulled out a tiny scrap of silver material. Hey, it's a piece of a spacesuit, I told Jenna. It must be from the alien that got caught in the thorn bush. Jenna squinted at the scrap. It's part of the sleeve, I think, and there's something on it, something colourful. We forgot about the ice cream and ran to my house. I found my magnifying glass and peered at the scrap through the lens. What do you see? Jenna asked. I'm not sure. I closed one eye to focus better. It's a rectangle, I told her, with stripes going across it. Red and white stripes. The upper left-hand corner is blue and it has a bunch of white stars on it. I counted them. 50 stars. That's weird, Jenna frowned. I wonder what it means. Me too, I agreed. Maybe it's some kind of symbol, a flag or something from the aliens' planet. I sighed. I guess we'll never know. Let's go get that ice cream, Jenna said. I tucked the tiny cloth rectangle into my pocket and followed her out the door. Don't know about you, but that story gave me goosebumps. I hope it did the same for you. Tune in next time for some more tales from even more tales to give you goosebumps. Right here on the Leftovers channel. Hit like, hit subscribe, stay up to date with the next episodes. I'll see you next time for some more thrills, chills, and possibly chills again.